The diplomatic mistake, the crystalline halls of Haven's rest station hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced technology. Built in the neutral zone between three major galactic powers, the station served as the perfect meeting ground for species who prefer to keep their conflicts civilized. Today, however, the atmosphere crackled with tension that had nothing to do with the station's energy grid. Captain Alina Vasquez walked through the diplomatic wing with measured steps, her black uniform bearing the simple silver insignia of the United Earth Space Command. Unlike the ornate corridors of alien vessels, human ships favored function over form, and Alina embodied that philosophy perfectly. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her calm brown eyes missed nothing as she approached the negotiation chamber. The humans had been part of galactic civilization for only 60 years, making them newcomers by most standards. They occupied a modest collection of systems in what the older races called the Outer Rim, territory that had been considered too poor in resources to fight over. The Vorthok Empire and the Kefarian Federation had been content to let humanity develop in peace, viewing them as useful trading partners but hardly a threat to established power. That perception was about to change. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthok Empire stood nearly 8 feet tall, his reptilian features carved with the authority of a species that had conquered half the galaxy. His scales shifted from deep purple to angry red as he gestured toward the holographic star map dominating the center of the chamber. The Kepler 442 system glowed with contested markers, showing the disputed territory that had brought them all. Here, the mineral rights to Kepler 442 belonged to the Vorthok Empire by right of first claim. Zethkar declared, his voice carrying the subsonic rumble that his species used to show dominance. We have maintained extraction facilities there for over 2 centuries. Commander Rillis of the Kefarian Federation clicked her mandibles in disagreement. The insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights like fractured gems. As she responded, first claim means nothing when the extraction violates the galactic mining Accord of 2387. The Kefarian Federation has legal authority to regulate resource extraction in that sector. Alina took her seat at the triangular table, noting how both alien representatives had positioned themselves to literally look down on the human position. It was a small detail, but one that spoke volumes about their attitudes. She placed her simple datapad on the table, a stark contrast to the elaborate holographic displays her counterparts used. The human colony on Kepler 4 for to see has been there for 15 years, Alina said quietly. We've established permanent settlements, agricultural complexes, and manufacturing facilities. The system is our home now, not just a resource extraction. Sight, Zethkar scales shifted to a deeper red. Human, your species has been in space for less than a century. You lack the experience to understand galactic law. Your small colony cannot claim an entire system. Small colony, Elena's eyebrows rose slightly. We have over 2 million people living on Kepler 4 for to see. It's one of our most successful terraforming projects. Commander Rillis made a sound that might have been laughter. Terraforming. Your species doesn't possess terraforming technology. You've simply adapted to whatever conditions you found. We've adapted the conditions to us, Alina corrected. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you actually live somewhere instead of just mining it. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Both alien representatives exchanged glances that human eyes couldn't fully interpret. But Alina caught the basic message. They were talking about her as if she weren't there. The Vorthok Empire has been monitoring human expansion, said slowly. Your ships are crude, your weapons are primitive, and your understanding of galactic politics is naive. You have survived this long because more advanced species have allowed it. Elena's voice remained calm, but something in her tone made both aliens pause. The Kefarian Federation agrees with our Vorthar colleagues, Rillis added. Humanity has been useful as a trading partner, but you lack the military capability to defend your territorial claims. The Kepler 442 system is too valuable to remain under human control. Elena leaned back in her chair, studying both aliens, with the same expression she might use to examine an interesting but dangerous insect. I see. So this isn't actually a negotiation at all. This is you telling me that you've decided to take our home. We prefer to think of it as a reallocation of resources, Zethkar said, his scales now shifting to what Elena recognized as the Vorthok equivalent of a patronizing smile. Your people will be compensated, of course. We're not monsters. How generous, Elena murmured. Commander. Rillis leaned forward, her mandibles clicking in what her species considered a friendly gesture. Captain Vasquez, your species has accomplished remarkable things for such a young civilization. But you must understand the realities of galactic power. The Vorthok Empire commands over 3,000 war vessels. The Kefarian Federation maintains a fleet of 1,500. How many ships does humanity possess? Elena was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming silently on the table. Are you asking for our exact military capabilities? Why not? Zethkar's subsonic rumble carried amusement. It's not as if the information would be useful in any practical sense. The United Earth Space Command maintains a fleet of approximately 200 vessels, Elena said. Most are exploration and research ships. We have maybe 50 vessels that could be considered military craft. Both aliens exchanged another look, this one clearly expressing satisfaction. 50 ships against over 4,000. The mathematics were simple enough. You see, Rillis said, even if humanity chose to fight, the outcome would be inevitable. We're offering you a peaceful solution that preserves your people's lives and dignity. And if we refuse this generous offer, Zethkar's scales shifted to a color Elena didn't recognize, but which somehow conveyed absolute certainty. Then you will discover why the Vorthok Empire has ruled this sector for over a millennium. Our biomolecular disruptors can reduce your ships to component atoms. Our quantum shields can deflect any weapon your primitive technology might deploy. The Kefarian Federation's plasma lance technology has never been defeated in battle. Rillis added, Our ships are living organisms, Captain. They can regenerate damage and adapt to any threat. Your metal hulls and chemical rockets are museum pieces. Elena nodded slowly, as if absorbing this information. Chemical rockets, that's an interesting assumption. Your ships use fusion drives, do they not? Zethkar asked. Fusion is barely one step above chemical propulsion on the galactic technology scale. We do use fusion drives, Elena confirmed. Among other things. Really? Compound eyes focused more intently on the human. What other propulsion methods does your species employ? Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It wasn't a particularly warm expression. I think that falls under military secrets, don't you? Military secrets. Zethkar's subsonic rumble now carried genuine amusement. Captain, you just told us that your entire fleet consists of 50 combat vessels. What secrets could you possibly have that would matter? You'd be surprised, Elena said. She stood up, smoothing down her uniform. I believe we've reached the limits of productive negotiation. You've made your position clear. and I need to report back to my superiors. There's nothing to report, Rillus said. You have one standard galactic week to begin evacuation procedures for Kepler-4 for to see. After that, we will begin enforcement actions. Enforcement actions, Alina repeated. Is that what we're calling invasion these days? We're calling it the natural order asserting itself, Zethkar said. Your species has had a remarkable run, Captain. Few civilizations achieve interstellar travel without being conquered, but all good things must end. Alina paused at the chamber's entrance, looking back at both aliens. Ambassador Zethkar, Commander Rillus, I want to thank you for this conversation. It's been ... illuminating. You're welcome, Captain, Rillus said, her mandibles clicking in what she clearly thought was a dismissive gesture. We hope you'll remember this kindness when you're explaining to your people why they must abandon their homes. Oh, I'll remember. Alina said, I'll remember every word. The chamber door sealed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the two aliens alone with their certainty. The humans are more reasonable than I expected, Zethkar observed. She accepted the inevitable without the usual theatrics. Perhaps their species is more intelligent than their primitive technology suggests, Rillus replied. They understand the futility of resistance. Neither alien noticed the small device that Captain Vasquez had left under the table, or the way it pulsed with a soft blue light as it recorded every word of their post-negotiation conversation. 3 hours later, Alina stood in the communications center of Haven's Rest, speaking to a secure holographic projection of Admiral Chen Wei, the commanding officer of the United Earth Space Command. They're not interested in negotiation, Alina reported. This was a formality. They've already decided to take the system. Admiral Chun's weathered face showed no surprise. Expected. What's their military assessment? 3,000 vessels, 1,500 Kefarian ships. They're planning joint operations against our 50 primitive combat vessels. 50 Chun's eyebrows rose. That's optimistic of them. They seem to think we're using chemical rockets and fusion drives. Chemical rockets, Chen repeated, and Alina could hear the smile in his voice. Well, that's technically true. We do use chemical rockets for some atmospheric operations. Should I tell them about the quantum drives? Not yet. Let them keep their assumptions. How long do we have? 1 week to begin evacuation procedures. After that, they start what they call enforcement actions. Chen was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming on an invisible surface. Captain, you're about to receive new orders. The UES Thunderclap is being deployed to the Kepler 442 system. Alina felt a chill run down her spine. The Thunderclap was the newest addition to the human fleet, and its capabilities were classified at levels that required quantum encryption to discuss. Admiral, are you sure? Once we reveal the Thunderclap's capabilities, there's no going back to the old assumptions. The old assumptions just got our people sentenced to exile from their own homes, Chen replied. I think it's time for a new understanding. Yes, sir. What are my orders? Take the Thunderclap to Kepler 442. Set up a defensive perimeter around the colony, and Captain, yes, Admiral. If they want to see what human warfare looks like, show them. The holographic projection faded, leaving Alina alone with her thoughts. She had joined the Space Command to explore the galaxy, to represent humanity among the stars. She had never expected to become the person who would shatter the galactic community's understanding of what humans were capable of. But sometimes history chose its own agents. Alina walked to the observation deck, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so welcoming. Somewhere out there, the Vorthok Empire and Kefarian Federation were preparing for what they thought would be a simple military operation against a primitive species. They were about to discover that their assumptions about humanity were not just wrong, but catastrophically incomplete. The quantum communicator on her wrist chimed softly. Her new orders had arrived, along with the authorization codes that would give her command of the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. The EU's thunderclap was already moving, its quantum drives bending space-time in ways that would have seemed like magic to the aliens, who thought humans were still using fusion. Technology. Alina smiled as she read the technical specifications. The thunderclap wasn't just a ship, it was a statement, a declaration that humanity's quiet decades of development had produced something the galaxy had never seen before. In 72 hours, the Vorthok Empire and Kefarian Federation would learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake that entire civilizations had learned to regret. The only question was whether they would survive the lesson. The quantum revelation, the Kepler 442 system had never seen so much military traffic. Vorthok bioships moved through space like living predators, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent threat displays that had intimidated enemies for over 1,000 years. The vessels ranged from small fighter analogs that resembled metallic insects to massive dreadnoughts that looked like floating cities of bone and sinew. Alongside them, the Kefarian Federation's fleet maintained perfect geometric formations. Their ships were crystalline constructs that seemed to grow rather than being built. Each vessel a masterpiece of living mineral that could repair itself and adapt to enemy tactics. The combined fleet represented the accumulated military might of two galactic superpowers. Against this armada, the human presence seemed almost insulting in its modesty. A single vessel hung in the void near Kepler 4 for to see, its hull reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. Two alien sensors. It appeared to be nothing more than a slightly larger version of the metal boxes that humans called STR-SHIPS. Ambassador Zethkar stood on the bridge of the Vorthok flagship Eternal Dominion, his scales shifting through colors that expressed satisfaction and barely contained bloodlust. The massive bioship's living walls pulsed around him, responding to his emotional state with sympathetic ripples of color. One ship, he rumbled to his tactical officer. They sent one ship to defend an entire system. The vessel does not match known human configurations, the officer replied, his own scales showing confusion. It appears to be approximately 2 kilometers in length, but our sensors cannot penetrate its hull composition. Irrelevant, Zethkar declared. No single vessel can stand against the combined might of our fleets. Are the Kefarians in position? Yes. Ambassador, Commander Rillis, reports that her forces are ready to begin the demonstration. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The combined fleet would destroy the human vessel in full view of the colony below, demonstrating the futility of resistance. Then they would accept the inevitable human surrender with magnanimous grace, securing the system's resources while maintaining the moral high ground. Zethkar activated the communication system, broadcasting on all human frequencies. Human vessel. This is Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthok Empire. You are outnumbered 4,000 to 1. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. The response came immediately, and Zethkar recognized the voice of Captain Vasquez from their earlier negotiations. Ambassador, this is Captain Alina Vasquez of the UES Thunderclap. I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid we'll have to decline. Captain, you cannot be serious. Look at your sensors. Count our ships. Do you truly believe that one human vessel can stand against our combined fleets? There was a pause, and when Vasquez spoke again, her voice carried a note of what might have been amusement. Ambassador, you're absolutely right. One human vessel can't stand against your combined fleets. Zethkar's scales shifted to triumphant gold. Then you surrender. Oh no, Vasquez replied. I'm just saying that you're right about the math. One ship against 4,000 isn't a fair fight. Not fair to you, Zethkar agreed. Not fair to you, Vasquez corrected. Computer, activate quantum field generators. Begin space-time manipulation sequence. The change was subtle at first. The stars around the human vessels seemed to shift, as if space itself was becoming fluid. Then the UES thunderclap began to move, and every alien sensor in the system registered readings that violated known physics. The ship didn't accelerate. It simply existed in a different location, as if it had convinced reality that it had always been there. Then it existed in another location, and another. The vessel seemed to be in multiple places simultaneously, its position becoming uncertain in a way that made targeting impossible. What is that? Zethkar demanded. His tactical officer's scales had gone pale with fear. Ambassador, I don't know. Our sensors show the vessel in 17 different locations simultaneously. It's as if space-time itself is ... broken. On the bridge of the Kefarian flagship Crystal Harmony, Commander Rillis was experiencing her own crisis of understanding. Her ship's quantum consciousness was sending distress signals through the vessel's living mineral structure. It's crystalline. Neurons firing in patterns that suggested something beyond panic. Ship soul, she whispered, using the intimate term for her vessel's consciousness. What do you perceive? The response came as a flood of sensory data that nearly overwhelmed her compound eyes. The human vessel wasn't just moving through space. It was rewriting the fundamental rules of how space worked. Matter and energy were becoming suggestions rather than laws, and the ship was making suggestions that reality couldn't ignore. All ships, begin attack pattern 7, Rillis commanded. Target all 17 positions simultaneously. The combined fleet opened fire with weapons that could sterilize planets. Biomolecular disruptors sent waves of destructive energy that could reduce matter to component atoms. Plasma lances carved through space with the focused power of small suns. Quantum torpedoes bent space-time to deliver their payloads directly into enemy hulls. Every shot missed. Not because the human ship was too fast or too maneuverable, but because it convinced reality that the attacks had never been fired. The weapons simply ceased to exist the moment they approached the UES thunderclap. Their energy and matter redistributed across quantum probability fields that defied comprehension. Impossible, Zethkar breathed. Not impossible, came Vasquez's voice over the communication system. Just improbable. Computer, demonstrate quantum manipulation, level 1. The UES thunderclap selected a target at random, a Vorthok cruiser that had been particularly aggressive in its attack patterns. The ship was there one moment, a 2-kilometer length of biomechanical warfare. The next moment, it was ... somewhere else. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply relocated to a point approximately 1 light-year away, where it would spend the next several months trying to navigate back to the battle that had already ended. Level 2 demonstration, Vasquez announced calmly. This time, the thunderclap selected a Kefarian destroyer. The crystalline vessel began to experience what its crew could only describe as existing in reverse. The ship moved backward through time while its crew experienced forward temporal flow, creating a causality loop that left everyone on board simultaneously experiencing their own past and future. The effect lasted only 30 seconds, but it was 30 seconds that would require years of therapy to process. Level 3, Vasquez said, and now her voice carried a note of warning. This is where things get interesting. The thunderclap extended its quantum field to encompass a formation of 12 enemy vessels. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the crews of those ships realized that they were experiencing existence from the perspective of their own weapons. The ships themselves were unharmed, but their crews were temporarily experiencing reality as photons, energy patterns, and probability waves. Enough. Zethkar's voice cracked with terror. Cease fire. All ships, cease fire. The shooting stopped, leaving the system in a silence that seemed to echo with the memory of impossibility. The combined fleet of 4,000 vessels hung motionless in space, their commanders trying to process what they had just witnessed. Ambassador Vasquez said gently, "Would you like to discuss new terms?" What are you?" Zeth whispered. "We're human," Vasquez replied. "We're the species you thought was using chemical rockets and fusion drives. We're the people you were planning to exile from their homes because we didn't have the military capability to defend our territory. But your technology, how is this possible? It's possible because you made the same mistake that every advanced civilization makes. You assumed that because we're younger, we're less capable. You looked at our ships and saw primitive metal boxes. You never asked what was inside the boxes." Commander Rillis found her voice. "The quantum manipulation. Your species has mastered space-time itself. We've mastered a few things," Vasquez admitted. "Physics, for one, mathematics, for another. But mostly, we've mastered the art of not making assumptions about people we don't understand." "You could have destroyed us," Zethkar said, his scales now showing the deep purple of existential shock. "Your single vessel could have eliminated our entire fleet." "Yes," Vasquez agreed. "But why would we want to do that? We're not conquerors, Ambassador. We're explorers. We're colonists. We're people who want to build homes and raise families and maybe learn a few things about the universe along the way. But you have the power to ... double quotes, Rillis began. "To do what? To force other species to submit to our will. To claim territory that doesn't belong to us. To exile people from their homes because we have bigger ships." Vasquez's voice carried a note of sadness. "That's not who we are. That's who you are." The communication channel fell silent for a long moment. When Zethkar spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. "Captain Vasquez, I believe we may have made an error in our assessment of the situation. You think? The Vorthok Empire. We have ruled through strength for over a millennium. We have never encountered a species that possessed greater military capability and chose not to use it." "Well, now you have," Vasquez said. "The question is, what do you want to do with that knowledge?" Commander Rillis was the first to respond. "The Kefarian Federation formally withdraws all claims to the Kepler 442 system. We ... we apologize for our presumption." "Accepted," Vasquez said. "Ambassador Zechka." Zethkar's scales shifted through several colors, before settling on a deep blue that expressed something the human couldn't quite interpret. "The Vorthok Empire also withdraws its claims, and we request permission to establish a diplomatic embassy in the Kepler 442 system." "Permission granted," Vasquez replied. "But I have a condition. Name it. Next time you want to negotiate with a species you don't understand, try asking questions instead of making assumptions. You might be surprised by what you learn." "Understood." Captain and Captain, yes. What else don't we know about humanity? Vasquez was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of infinite possibilities. Ambassador, you've just discovered that we can manipulate quantum fields and rewrite spacetime. You've seen us relocate ships across interstellar distances and make crews experience reality from the perspective of photons. Yes, that's our second-generation technology. We've been developing third-generation systems for the past 20 years. The silence that followed was profound. Captain Zethkar said finally, "The Vorthok Empire would very much like to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. We have much to learn from each other, and the Kefarian Federation agrees," Rillis added. We may have underestimated the value of asking questions." "Questions are good," Vasquez said. "Questions lead to understanding. Understanding leads to cooperation. And cooperation leads to a galaxy where everyone can build homes and raise families and maybe learn a few things about the universe along the way." The UES Thunderclap began to move again, its quantum drives carrying it back toward the human colony. As it passed through the combined alien fleet, every sensor in the system registered the same impossible reading. The ship was simultaneously approaching and departing, arriving and leaving, existing in the past and future while occupying a present that seemed to bend around its presence. It was a demonstration of power that went beyond military capability. It was a glimpse into a fundamental understanding of reality that made the aliens realize they were not just outgunned, but out-hawked. As the human vessel reached orbit around Kepler-4 for to see, Captain Vasquez opened a final communication channel. "To all ships in the system, you are welcome to visit our colony. We have excellent coffee, and I think you'll find our approach to terraforming quite interesting. We don't just adapt to conditions, we adapt the conditions to us." "We see that," Zethka said softly. "We see that very clearly." The great fleet began to disperse, carrying with it the knowledge that humanity was not the primitive species they had assumed. They were something far more dangerous and far more wonderful. They were the species that had learned to ask reality politely to behave differently, and reality had agreed. In the years that followed, the Kepler 442 system became the unofficial capital of a new galactic order, not because humanity had conquered anyone, but because they had done something far more impressive. They had made the galaxy's most powerful civilizations realize that there was still so much to learn.